Hello everyone, welcome back to Rough Cut Woodworking, and for this series of videos we're going to show you from beginning to end how to make this end table. Now the end table, get a better grip, has a drawer, and it also has the top built in with a chessboard. So we're going to show you how to put this all together. Now a quick note on what woods you can use. You can use any of the woods, standard woods that I have in the shop. But remember, for your chessboard, you're going to need blocks of wood that have highly alternating colors, very different. For the one that we're going to build, I'm going to use alder for the framing, the legs and around the outside. And for the chessboard itself, we're going to use walnut for the dark squares and maple for the light squares. However, I have cherry and oak and one or two other kinds of woods that you're welcome to mix and match and ask me about pricing if that changes at all. The first thing we're going to start is the 4 legs. These legs are 1.5 inches thick and they get tapered sharper as you go down on the table. So first we're going to rough cut that and get those milled. Step 1 in cutting the legs is we first need to make a rough cut out of what's called 6/4 material. Now make sure you've got the right material, whether it's alder or walnut or oak or whatever. So you're pulling the right wood. I'm happy to check it if you're not sure. First thing to check is when you pull it out, you'll notice first of all that 6/4 lumber is actually about 1.5 inches thick. So it's much thicker than our normal stock that we use for our other projects. But take a quick glance. And in this case, I see a large knot in the very end of the board. If that knot were further in, I probably wouldn't worry about it. But in this case, I can cut that knot off right here. Best guess, you don't need to really measure, on the upcut saw. And then what we're going to do is rough cut to 26 inches long. Our table, when it's finished, will be 26 inches tall. So minus the top, the thickness of the top, eventually we'll cut it to 25 1/4. So rough cut is 26. So set your upcut saw to 26, and in my case, I always cut off the factory end, always. But since I have a knot, I'm going to cut a little more than our standard 2 inches, and we'll cut 26. Okay, there's my knot. Now I slide down to 26 and cut again. And this one piece should be enough for all 4 legs side by side. The next step is we're going to run it through the jointer. We need a good edge. So we're going to shave an edge flat and smooth and true it up. Now I was going to mention previously, if your board ends up having a large knot in somewhere in the middle, go ahead and cut your legs as normal. I have epoxy that we can use and mix up and reinforce it. So there are things we can do to fill the knot. So don't worry about it if that's what you've got. So first, let's join it. It'll usually take 1 or 2 passes. So I got most of it. There's a little bit there and there left. Now we come here to the table saw, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut strips out so that they're the same thickness as they are width. Now I said when I picked this board up that 6/4 lumber is about 1.5 inches thick. And that's true, but when it's milled down, it actually comes at a 1/16 shy of that. So we're actually at 1 7/16, and that's very common with 6/4 lumber. So what we need to do is set this to 1 7/16. And we can just do that here on the tape measure on the table itself. That's 1 7/16. But always make sure, because this wood is a little extra thick, you can raise the guard with the blade stopped, of course. Set the board next to the blade and make sure the blade is high enough to cut through it. Our other lumber, which is thinner, doesn't need the blade as high. So you're going to be turning the handle right in front of your knees, right as I'm standing here. It's right here on the table saw in the front. Turn it clockwise to raise the blade until the gullets, that's the dip between the teeth, is just above the board. So you want the teeth to protrude out the top. Once you have that set, turn it on and let's cut a couple of strips. Keep your hand behind the blade. Don't let your left hand go where the blade is. Then grab your push stick Go all the way through. Keep your hand right here behind the blade. What I don't want to do is push here and pinch the blade, and you get burns. Notice at the very end of my cut, I kind of let go with my fingers. That makes it so I can't push. I don't want to push into the blade. When you're done, any of the waste that you had needs to be grabbed from the back. Never go for it from the front. That's when you get a thumb into the blade. Now you notice that the last cut, it kind of pinched a little. I couldn't really push simply because that leftover piece fit perfectly between this little hold down and the splitter right here. So it just pinched. So I simply lifted it up in the back and then it went just fine. Please let me know if you're having any issues with that. It's an easy fix. It's not something you need to worry about, and we'll get you through. But now I have my 4 legs, and they're 1 7/16 both directions. So this should be a perfect square. And all we need to do now is just sand off some of the uneven parts of it. Now that I have my blocks cut to the correct squares, the correct size, width-wise, we need to cut them to length. So what we have to do on all of them is we're going to cut them down to 25 1/4. 25 1/4 plus the 3/4 top will be our 26. So I set this to 25.25, 25 1/4. And remember, you can do it on either this saw where I program it in or my other saw on the other side. They both work the same way. First, I need to trim an end because I have no idea if this cut is square. Could be a little off kilter because it was rough when I cut it. So I'm just going to trim a blade width or so off of this end. Throw it away. Now that this end is square, I slide it down to my stop and I can cut the other end to the correct length and repeat this on all 4 pieces.